So I'm here with Paco, the developer of InterestExplorer.io. And Paco's got some very, very cool and unique tools to help us Facebook ads marketers run our ads a bit more efficiently and identify these hidden kind of interests that Facebook doesn't give you when you select the suggestions button when you're searching a specific niche out. So this is Paco here.
Hey there.
Paco's in the Netherlands, and Paco, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, first of all. So I am Paco. I live in the Netherlands. I'm a Facebook marketer and a developer, a combination of both, actually. My online journey started around 10 years ago when I started selling online piano courses. And then I discovered that you can sell a lot online. So over the last 10 years, I've sold almost everything, starting with piano courses, still the -- piano course website in the Netherlands online. And then I did a lot of t-shirts. I also sold, physical products. And then I discovered the whole AliExpress thing. And that's when I stumbled upon developing software. Because what I basically noticed is that any platform you take a close look at, is it AliExpress or it can be Facebook or Twitter or whatever platform, there's always shortcomings and there's always things that don't really work well. So there's always room for improvement. And then that's actually where I started building software. First tool was AliExpress software that just ranked products by their daily number of sales instead of AliExpress showing you a total. Mm-hmm. And then I moved on to Facebook. I did a couple of other things, but that's not important for now. So then I moved to Facebook, and because I was running ads myself a lot for these print-on-demand type t-shirts, I tested like a whole bunch of interest, and the idea of interest testing always was like this $5 a day or $10 a day, and then a whole bunch of interest. Like maybe you've also done that in the past, but that was the game, at least back then. But then I also started looking into like Facebook's documentation to find out if there are like other things that I can do and what the policies were. And then I actually stumbled upon a whole lot of information that is, I think, unknown to most Facebook advertisers because they don't read the developer documentation. And that's actually the start of the tools that I'm building now.
Yeah, I mean, it's super helpful because, I mean, I've got so I heard about it from a friend of mine named John, who sent me over and was like, hey, have you used this or heard this? A couple other marketers had chatted about it. And I was like, no. And so, I mean, I always like click and look at things at least. But whenever I did click and look through, I was like, okay, that's like pretty interesting. And so I did a bit more digging to what Interest Explorer actually does. And I mean, if you have multiple clients, it's beautiful, especially for the clients that, you're trying, that they've hit like a cap. So I feel like there's like two people. There's people that have hit a cap in their ads, and they're just basically saturating these either lookalike audiences, or they're saturating the interests that they've always been saturating, that everybody saturates. And you need something else to get some new traffic in and get something new going, because it's like you plateau and you get stagnant. For those kind of clients, it's beautiful for using. And then there's the other kind of clients who, they're brand new and they've got a company and they've got some funding, and they want to start to push their ads for their product or their service and find out who it is that is going to be the customer or the buyer. But when you run those ads, it's just not feasible to break down and run granular, like 25 segmented interests or 50 or however many it takes to be able to determine that, okay, 24-hour fitness interest is one that gets a lot of purchases versus, Lifetime Fitness, Crunch Fitness, Planet Fitness. When you run all this down, and then you've got to have, of course, the at least now with CBO about 8 to 13 days of runtime to get that data back and be able to analyze and make meaningful marketing decisions. The clients are getting more and more on edge because we're running for 13 days and the ad spend is way high. The ROAS is down because you've got maybe 5 interests that are taking off, but the other 20 are all plummeting and doing terrible. But you want to give it its fair shake to determine and be able to say, okay, this is a bad interest to target. But the thing that I love about using this tool is that I can lump them all into one ad set together and I can run it, and that ad set can actually take off and have life to it and get a positive ROAS. And I can still be testing those other interests in there, but CBO is lumping all the budget onto the one that's actually converting. So it ends up being a really, really good and helpful tool so that I break down that ad, I look at it, and I can be able to determine, the CPMs, the cost per click, the click-through rate. I think even the view contents and the adds to cart on some of the interests, even if they aren't generating the actual conversions, they may be still good ones you might want to target. And, I think if you're doing it on that segmented basis of 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 in ad sets, it just takes so much time to get all that data.
It's too expensive. It's like learning money. And I think most clients, or especially when people are advertising with their own pocket money, then they just don't have the patience, and they most of the time shut off ads in general before they start working. I think that's a big mistake. I see a lot.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of I'd say a ton of people that leave me comments on my social media will say that they turned off this ad after 3 days or 4 days, and it's just not enough time to be able to run, especially with CBO. And I feel like that's such a buzzword every time I say it, but it's just, once it becomes kind of the new norm and having to rely on Facebook's AI to deliver your conversions, I think it can be kind of spooky to a lot of advertisers who micromanage and who have had their hands in the success of their ad sets and their ads, and now they're kind of just leaving it up to Facebook. Well, you can still manipulate the ad set budget minimum and maximum, just to not let CBO go crazy with one specific ad set. It's still kind of tough just letting it run and not being able to have much say in it if you don't set that.
Exactly.
So what made you think of the software, just from your own trial and error?
Yeah, so it started with testing all these interests myself for these $5, $10 a day t-shirts, and then finding 1 or 2 that work and the others don't. And I was always curious as to why are most Facebook pages, even if they have large audiences, why can't I target them? And
I was going to say the same thing.
So I was always wondering, why can some things be targeted and others not? And why, if I use Facebook Audience Insights, I can't see which ones I can target. So there's this whole bunch of inefficiencies in the process. And then I started looking into their documentation for developers to find a solution, actually. And there I found that all the Facebook agency software, like these big AI things like Smartly and the big guys, they use Facebook's API to get all the data that is otherwise in Ads Manager. But there's also, and that's what I found out when reading these documents, that there's also a bunch of things that are not in the interfaces of Ads Manager and Audience Insights, but they are in the API. And the API is not something that is hidden, or it's like a public facing API that any developer can access, but most Facebook advertisers are not developers. And that's where the room for my solution was created.
Super interesting. So I've never understood why some interests show up as suggestions and some don't. Do you know why?
Yeah, there's I've read a lot about it, but there's also not a lot of communication from Facebook. So the main misconception that a lot of people have is that pages and interests are 2 entirely different things. They're completely different, and also as different as behaviors and interests. They look like keywords in the dropdown, but they are for Facebook, they're completely different entities, and they are not. They're just not. There's no similarity between them, which means that if you target a Facebook page, then you want an interest that has the same word as a Facebook page. So if you target the Coca-Cola interest, you target, amongst others, the people that like the Facebook page of Coca-Cola, but you also target people that visit the website of Coca-Cola because the Facebook pixel is on there. You also target people who buy products with Coca-Cola on it in various Shopify stores because there's also Facebook pixel. So the amount of data that Facebook collects is huge, and they want their interest audiences to be as huge as possible because that's how they make money. So of course they're not going to limit your targeting to target the Facebook page with 10,000 people.
Yeah.
They want you to target like the bigger audience because that's where the money is for them, and in the end also for you if you hit the right ones.
Yeah, that's always been something. I feel like even people that even other advertisers that have been in the space for a bit, you know, when you're about to select an interest and you hover over it and it says that you know, you're going to target people who have an interest in Coca-Cola or like pages similar, you click it and you're still just like, okay, but like, who the hell am I really even targeting?
Exactly. What I firmly believe in, what I really learned, I think a year ago was the idea that interests are not necessarily do not necessarily have to be related to your product. And that's also why all these hidden interests that my tool presents are so valuable, because you want to target interests preferably that no one else knows. Because like if you, for example, target Arnold Schwarzenegger, when you are targeting, I don't know, fitness t-shirts, then there's various people that like Arnold Schwarzenegger for completely different reasons than being a fitness guy. And that's the problem with almost any of the huge interest audiences. So you basically want to find interest within the topic of fitness that no one likes except for the people that are really fitness enthusiasts. So for example, if there's the difference between the interest CrossFit, you'll get all the people that incidentally CrossFitted once, or I don't know, have friends that have posts about CrossFit, which all CrossFitters have, and then they like that. And that's because then they have the interest in the eyes of Facebook. But if you target people who like the CrossFit Games in 2015, there's no one who likes that except for people who are actually CrossFit. So that's like the whole sort of mindset thing that I notice is really important. And regardless CBO, regardless any bidding strategy, if you don't know your audience, you're fucked. And it will become worse and worse and worse because it gets more expensive every year.
Yeah, and I showed this to a potential client the other day, and my gut instinct is that I feel like they're kind of dealing with some like audience pollution, and that they've targeted the same kinds of interests and the same kinds of people over and over and over, and their lookalikes now are just a bit polluted as well. And that's just a hypothesis, of course, of why a specific client is seeing a drop in ROAS, but I gotta feel like, when you do start to hit the wrong interest, it just turns into this big echo chamber, like loop of bad ROAS, and it takes a bit of cleaning to get yourself out of that and rid yourself of those bad people that just, they might have an interest in the brand, but they're just not people that have any kind of buying intent. All that stuff that you just mentioned is super interesting, especially the interest stuff.
I see another mistake that I see a lot that ties into what you just said is that it's when you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And people firmly believe that lookalike audiences always outperform anything else. I see the complete opposite in my own ad account. And the reason for that is when you put everyone who made a purchase into a lookalike audience, then you'll, in most cases, catch people that bought super inexpensive products, that bought super expensive products, that bought once or that bought 10 times. Mm-hmm. So if you don't narrow that down, you will just basically have a complete random list. And when, for example, I use interest targeting, I am so insanely specific that I exclude almost everyone. I exclude females in my own ads. I exclude almost 50% of age ranges. Why? Because I only want to have my ideal customer feed into that lookalike audience. Not to say that I don't scale it up later on, but most advertisers, when they start, they don't have the data to run good lookalike audiences and to have real good lookalike audience per country with a seed audience that comes from the same country. Yeah. And there's this whole misconception that by letting Facebook do it, you can just let go of the idea that you have to actually know your audience. And maybe in 10 years that will be the case. The AI maybe gets better. But I think for now, the most important thing if you're an advertiser is to really deeply understand who you're targeting and be as specific as possible, at least at the start, and then build from there.
Yeah, I think that's why those interests are so important, with being able to target and isolate those and see the ones that are available versus the other ones that aren't.
Exactly.
How long did it take you to build this software out?
So I've started doing this in August last year. So I would say 8 to 9 months now. It's not a full-time project, so it's a side project, but it's I would say 8 months approximately. But we're constantly adding new stuff to it. So the initial version was live within a month. Because it's basically super easy. It's like there is this API, you connect to it, and you create a graphical interface around it, and then you get clients, and then they start asking questions and get stuff.
Yeah, I know that all too well.
Yeah, but in general, like I learned a lot also, for example, about the agency client, and that's so one of the directions in which I'm moving with my tool, because a lot of users use it as agencies. And there's a different requirement. You want to be able to involve your clients in the process as well. So you want to be able to maybe share projects, share accounts, keep them share information so that they can give input, because in the end, they should know their audience best. And they can even engaging a client in the process of creating ads is super valuable for an agency, to build a relationship, to get them involved, to get them to understand what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the direction in which we have a couple of new features.
And I'm sure people that are watching have questions on whether it's going to be able to work with CBO once CBO comes and kicks in. So I'll let you address that.
Yeah. So that's I think the hot topic right now. Everyone's concerned with CBO and everyone's waiting for it to be forced upon us. So I basically did some testing to see if the API would still work and if the interest analytics would still be returned in a CBO campaign. Luckily, that's absolutely the case. But there are some limitations to this API, so I was a bit unsure about that, and that's the reason why I tested. Basically, CBO will just change the way we bid, but it will not change the way that we target, at least not in the foreseeable future.
Gotcha. So a question for you on your own testing and whatnot. Lately, what have you seen work better, 1 day click or 7 day click plus 1 day view?
That's an interesting question. I very recently tested it. My two latest A/B tests were that, and also having a call to action or no call to action. So the first one, for me at least, the 1 day works better. But I would say that every advertiser should look into Facebook Analytics to really learn about their audience, how their purchase journey looks like. Because for me, 80% of all my purchases happen within the first day after someone visits my website. And then within the first 3 days, I get 95%. So for me, the first 3 days is where everything happens. And therefore, I try to optimize for 1 day click. I do get a little bit higher CPM, but for me, it doesn't matter in the end because I also have a higher conversion. The second A/B test that I did with call to action and no call to action, also something you should, of course, test yourself. But for me, call to actions ruin everything. So I tend to not use them anymore.
Really? So it's more native?
Yeah, basically, I think it's two cases. I think there's a lot of bot traffic. So you can check that in your ad accounts.
Very interesting. I've heard about that. I've heard about that being talked in a number of different Facebook groups.
I've personally seen it in this test, and I think that you can see it in the difference between link clicks and between landing page views. And that is like when you have the exact same ad in the exact same audience, and there's a huge difference in the percentage that actually reaches your landing page. Then my assumption is that that's bot traffic, because there's no structural difference between the two. But everyone should, of course, test themselves. The other alternative explanation is that it looks more native. But that's also different for mobile and desktop. So
I think I'm gonna try and split test that myself. I feel like I've done that before in the past, but usually I just always add either learn more, or shop now, call to action. So you're saying do no button?
I don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Like as for everything on Facebook, like everyone should run their own test, because I don't think there are best practices in that case. But for the analytics or for the attribution window, like the most important two reports that you should look at are the Facebook analytics report for funnels. So if you build your funnel out of events, then you can see the time lag between these events. Mm-hmm. And the second one is, of course, in Google Analytics, your time lag e-commerce report, where you can see the percentage of sessions or percentage of transactions within the first session, second session, third session. And that way you learn about what your journey looks like. My software is an impulse buy. So if there's no reason for me to retarget way beyond 3 or 7 days, because
since I bought it, I'm an impulse buyer.
everyone is an impulse buyer because the price point is an impulse buy.
It's good. I mean, business is the exchange of value, and if we see value on something for a good price and it outweighs the price, then we buy.
Exactly, and like if you have a strong refund policy with that. Yeah, people don't mind if there's a trial or not. They just purchase it, and you have a certain percentage that refunds, but that's the case for every for every product that you sell.
So I'll wrap up the video since it's about 30 minutes. I'm sure you probably get to bed there in the Netherlands. With rolling out this ads library notification, so you can kind of I don't want to say spy, but just see what your competitors are doing in terms of what ads or products they're releasing. I think it can be good on actually, I think it's more so catered to e-commerce, but tell me a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So Facebook recently launched this Facebook ad library out of the necessity for transparency. So people want to be able to see why they are targeted and who is targeting them and with which data. So they launched this ad library. It's mainly for political topics. So they have an API, which I instantly looked at because I thought there is definitely something in there as well. Then it turned out that you can't use this API for anything else than political ads. But of course, the ad library is an open platform. So I'm now building a tool where you can input a Facebook page of, for example, one of your competitors, and then this tool will visit your competitor's Facebook page every day in ad library to see if they've launched new ads and in which country they launched them. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as that happens, you will just get an email that says, this Facebook page has launched new ads, check them out here. That's the basic feature. And then of course, there's additional things that we want to implement, like how long is an ad running? Because that's like a sign they don't have it running if it's not profitable. So mm-hmm. There's something to say about the success of their testing then. Yeah. And we want to connect it to Zapier so that you can get these notifications in any preferred form or shape through Zapier and one of the tools that you use like Slack or Facebook Messenger.
Even with, just seeing what they're running, I think seeing the creative as well for marketers and advertisers, it's helpful to kind of think like, oh, that's cool. I like that person's doing. And you don't piggyback off it, but I mean, it's inspiration. So I like that aspect of it.
Like I mainly use it for inspiration. So I have like 15 or 20 pages now that I follow that are in the same industry. But this is especially something I think for e-commerce and especially for these people that are drop shipping stuff, because like the whole industry is spying on each other.
Yeah.
So, but it can be a pretty cumbersome process if you have to do that every day for 50 pages. So why not get an email when something changes?
Well, I think that's a bit it for the questions for you. I'll let you push on off, but I appreciate you being here. And if you haven't already checked it out, it's interestexplorer.io. That's the website. Go there, try it for yourself. He's got a bulletproof refund policy.
Absolutely.
But other than that, I appreciate you coming on here and chat with me about it. And I can't wait to kind of try and test more of that no button.
Cool.
Type non-CTA.
Keep me posted.
I will.
Thanks, man.
Marco, well, appreciate you being on here.
Thanks.
All right.